We're good. In compliance with Chapter 551 Open Meetings of the Texas Government Code, I call to order a regular voting meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Austin Independent School District for Thursday, January 30th, 2025 at 6:05 p.m. A quorum of the board is physically present at the AISD Central Office to conduct this meeting. This meeting is streaming live on AISD TV and Apple TV. It is also being broadcast on cable channel 22 through Spectrum, Astound Broadband, and on channel 99 through AT&T Uverse. Closed captioning in English is available on these platforms for individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. Our next item is under the President's Report, and tonight is our first full meeting of the new board after our second new trustee joined us at our last meeting. We welcome again Larissa Quintana and Fernando de Urioste to join us. And then at the end of our last meeting, yes, thank you. And at the end of our last meeting, which was really early in the morning, so you probably weren't watching, I hope you weren't watching, we appointed new officers, as we have to consider every 2 years when new people join the board. And so Lynn Boswell is president, Catherine Whitley-Chu is vice president, and Andrew Gonzalez, who will be joining us later, is secretary. And we also want to thank Trustees Singh and Foster. And we also want to thank Trustees Singh and Foster for serving as officers for the last 2 years. And glad that they remain on our board to contribute in new ways. More information will be shared in a transition letter from the Board of Trustees, which will go out in the staff and community newsletters this week. So thank you all. I also want to share that the administration has created a new announcement for board meetings called the Board Bulletin. The purpose is to provide a summary of the previous board meeting and include any actions taken and highlights on district's progress for student data and key initiatives. These board bulletins will appear following board meetings on the main page of the district website, online web stories, and in the family and staff newsletters. And I want to thank the administration for doing that work to increase transparency with our community and make our meetings even more accessible. Thank you. Our next item is committee reports. We've posted a written committee report as an attachment to this item on our board docs agenda. It includes a committee report from the Austin Education Fund. And the next item is our superintendent's report. Superintendent Scritta.
Thank you, President Boswell. I want to start by highlighting some student accolades from this past month, and we have a presentation here to take us through it. So to kick it off, we are celebrating Sunset Valley Elementary School cheerleaders' incredible achievement. They did it. This group of girls has been crowned Texas's cheerleader state champions. They took first place in their division, earned second place overall, and were awarded the prestigious Spirit Award. And that's not all. They've also qualified for nationals. So in just 6 weeks, they'll be back at it, giving it their all in San Antonio, March 8th and 9th. Congratulations to these amazing athletes for their hard work and dedication. We are so very proud of you. Next, let's celebrate the incredible talent display at the Austin ISD inaugural Sticker Bash Artist Reception. This is where you go get your stickers for your Yetis, for your cups. It's an incredible event. The reception showcased 111 students' work from grades 9 through 12, students from Eastside Early College High School, Ann Richards Young Women's Leadership Academy, Austin High School, Anderson High School, Aikens Early College High School, Lhasa High School, Northeast Early College High School, and Bowie High School all submitted their amazing artwork. This event was an incredible opportunity to highlight the creativity and hard work for our students across the district. Congratulations to all the students who participated. Next, I also want to congratulate 2 incredible Austin ISD students whose artwork have been selected for the Texas Art Education Association's Youth Art Month Spring Exhibition at the Bullock, Texas State History Museum this March. Catalina Rebolloso and Sarah McConnell from Austin High have their artwork featured in this prestigious exhibition. You can see that right there. It's pretty incredible. This is a wonderful opportunity to showcase the creativity and talent of our students to a wider audience. We're so proud of Catalina and Sarah for their achievements and can't wait to see their artwork displayed at the museum. Next, let's celebrate the amazing achievements of our students in the Scholastic Arts and Writing Awards regional competition. Austin ISD earned 42 Gold Key Art Awards in various categories. Notable contributions came from McCallum High School with 20 gold keys, Austin High School with 5 gold keys, Anderson High School with 4 gold keys, Bowie High School with 2 gold keys, Aikens Early College High School with 1 gold key, Goritsky Middle School with 4 gold keys, Lamar Middle School with 2 gold keys, Bailey Middle School with 1 gold key, These talented students are now eligible for national recognition, scholarships, and publication in the Scholastic Arts and Writing magazine. Congratulations to all of our winners. Next, let's congratulate our talented Austin ISD dancers who are part of the Texas Dance Educators Association's annual convention held in Houston earlier this month. This special convention provides targeted professional learning for our dance directors at an opportunity for top dance students across the state to be selected for the All-State Dance Team. This year, Austin ISD had 6 All-State Dance Team members from Aikens Early College High School, Bowie High School, Crockett Early College High School, Novato Early College High School, Northeast Early College High School, and Travis Early College High School. These students participated in workshops, leadership training, master classes, and networking with other students. The experience culminated in a performance choreographed by a professional and master choreographer. Congratulations to these outstanding student dancers for their hard work and dedication. Next, we want to congratulate 18 Austin ISD school students who have been selected to perform with a Texas All-State Ensemble in San Antonio on February 15th at the Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center as part of the 2025 Texas Music Educators Association Clinic and Convention. All-State is the highest honor a Texas musician student can achieve. Only the top 2.6% of the 70,000 musicians who initially auditioned make it through the multi-level judging process to become all-state musicians. This is an incredible accomplishment. Congratulations to these students for earning this prestigious recognition. We are so proud of you. Now let's take a moment to recognize the outstanding students who participated in the 20th annual MLK Oratory competition hosted by the Austin Area Heritage Council on January 16, 2025. You can see some pictures of them right there. 4th and 5th grade Austin ISD students from Campbell Elementary School, Maplewood Elementary School, Oak Springs Elementary School, and Blackshear Elementary School showcased their creativity and passion as they wrote and delivered their own vision for change and equality. Here are the winners. First place, Micaiah Chowdhury from Campbell Elementary, 4th grade. Second place, Elle Nans from Maplewood Elementary. Third place, Camden Lee from Maplewood Elementary. Thank you to all the students for your powerful words and vision for a beautiful, much better future. Now let's talk about sports for a moment. A huge congratulations to 2 Travis Rebels for being named to the All-Central Texas team. Dominic Juarez, offensive line, made it to the 3rd team. He was a key blocker for an offense that averaged 36.2 points and 8 yards per carry. Great job, Dominic. Your impact on the field was huge. Jordan Davis, utility player, made it to the 2nd team. So check this out. Jordan was Travis's starting quarterback, safety, and punter. He combined for 1,374 total yards, 19 touchdowns, intercepted 4 passes, recovered 5 fumbles, and averaged 35 yards per punt. What an incredible all-around player. Congratulations, Dominic and Jordan. We're so proud of both of you. I'm also thrilled to congratulate Elliot Tula, a junior culinary arts student at Clifton, for winning the Grand Champion Award in their category at the Texas County Youth Show for their incredible quick bread. Winning the Grand Champion Award is no small feat. Elliot's accomplishment sets a high standard for future chefs in our district. Congratulations, Elliot. We can't wait to see where your culinary talents take you next. And also, today, I got to join HEB to surprise 2 of our amazing staff members who are finalists for the HEB Excellence in Education Awards. First, congratulations to Miss Karen Terry, counselor at Bertha Sadler Means Young Women's Leadership Academy, who is one of 4 counselors in all of Texas to move on to the final round. 1 in 4, y'all. That's huge. It's incredible. And also congratulations to Mr. Wendell Norris, also known as Coach Norris, bilingual teacher and soccer coach at Lively Middle School, who's one of 5 teachers in all of Texas to move on to the final round. Both of these amazing educators personally received $1,000 to spend however they want, and their school also received $1,000. If selected as winners in the final round, they would each get $10,000, and their school would also receive an additional $10,000. We are so thankful to have such outstanding educators in our district. Ms. Terry and Mr. Norris, all of Austin ISD is rooting for you, and it was just an incredible event earlier today. Just so much love in those schools and in those classrooms. Next, as we transition, I'd like to give an update regarding January 21st, Bad Weather Day. As you know, we closed Austin ISD schools and offices on Tuesday, January 21st, in response to severe winter weather that negatively impacted roads and travel due to freezing temperatures and precipitation. With the approval of the board resolution today, all classified exempt and non-exempt employees who were unable to work due to inclement weather on January 21st will receive regular pay and will not need to make up that service day. Staff who were called in by the supervisors because their service was deemed essential to maintain operations will receive hazard pay. And sometimes this occurs whenever we need to send operations folks out to our buildings to ensure the pipes don't burst or that there's a remediation plan in place. So finally, Austin ISD will not need to make up that day. So for all the students following along, wondering if I'm going to add a day, that's not happening. We will not need to make up for that day due to the extra minutes of instruction included in the academic calendar. And lastly, it is Board Appreciation Month, and we couldn't let this superintendent's report go without kind of my personal appreciation on behalf of Austin ISD and myself for our Board of Trustees. We have 9 amazing individuals that do incredible work, and I say this often, but I don't often say it to you all. I genuinely believe that, you know, the 9 of y'all aligned in moving forward is very special, especially when you think about, you know, what other boards and other organizations experience all across Texas. And so here in Austin, we have something very special, and with the opportunity to do this work together, I think we can do incredible things. So if you get a chance, those in the room and maybe those online, there are thank you banners from a variety of schools hung up here, but wanted to just say on behalf of Austin ISD staff and me personally, I very much appreciate you. We very much appreciate you. And that, President Boswell, concludes my superintendent's update.
Awesome, thank you. And if I, just before we move on, just want to say thank you for that. Really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who has sent these beautiful posters from our campuses, amazing food from Clifton, things we haven't even seen yet, book donations to libraries. We are feeling so much gratitude from the community and appreciation. And just, we have matching Vans from Superintendent Segura, so we can all wear Vans at graduation. Just wanted to share how much we appreciate our community for showing up for our schools and being our partners in this really important work. So thank you all. Next is a budget update from the administration.
Just pose a question.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Oh, sorry, question?
So Superintendent Segura, I'm very grateful for the, for the communication to staff so they wouldn't worry about the pay or the makeup days. But I just want to clarify and make sure I understand that agenda item 8.9 on the agenda is actually for the board to approve that measure. So that will become official once we vote for that tonight?
That's correct, Trustee Kaufman, and it's something that we've done in the past. In the moment during the crisis, it's usually in between board meetings, and so we don't have the opportunity to convene. So in the past, is what we've done is bring it by way of resolution. So this, in fact, would allow us to kind of address the compensation component of us financially.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you, Trustee Kaufman. Okay, now next is a budget update from the administration. We've scheduled 30 minutes for this discussion. And Superintendent Segura, can you please introduce our budget update?
Absolutely. I'd like to welcome Ms. Katrina Montgomery, Interim Chief Financial Officer, Dr. Jacob Reach, Chief of Board Services and Governmental Relations, to take us through the budget presentation.
Hello, President Boswell and Superintendent Segura. Tonight we're going to start going over our budget updates. We have our board guardrails. We met in August of 2024, and the board gave us very specific guidelines of how they wanted us to proceed with our reductions and cost strategies. So, 1, to ensure cuts in any area are equity driven. 2, consider the long-term impacts of these cuts and reductions. 3, ensure that the teacher's voice has been heard in the decisions. 4, center literacy aligned to our student outcomes. And finally, listen to the people impacted before cuts are final. So the Cascade implementation timeline, this is the timeline that talks about the $92 million deficit. We have 3 years, and we did this very strategically because we wanted to make sure that we were able to get 2 legislative sessions here. So we're currently in the 89th Texas legislation, and in 24-25, we said we would cut or reduce our deficit by $26 million. And the check mark means we've accomplished that, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail. For FY 25-26, it's $47 million worth of reductions. And then 26-27, we would have the 90th Texas legislation with reductions of $19 million. When you see the bold black line, everything to the left, those are developed strategies that we're going to talk about in detail that we've already kind of worked through. They're on our list, which we're working through next steps. And then you have pending strategies, which is more of the FY 25-26 reductions, as well as the 26-27 reductions. This slide simply shows that what we've presented last time for FY 24-25, the $26 million goal that we just talked about on the previous slide, the strategies have been achieved. So I want to be very clear, the strategies have been achieved, and we're consistently working through what this means and making sure we're tweaking all of these strategies to goal. Finance, it's $5 million, and that's mostly going to come from interest earned. We're meeting with our bankers to talk about ways to come up with strategies to increase our interest. Like, what do we need to do? We have so much money. Our tax collections are coming in. What do we need to do to make sure that we're maximizing the interest earned? So those meetings will be held next week. Operations and Facilities, Chief Steamport's department has contributed $8.98 million. You see a star to the right because that means she has continued to work. She's made improvements and done additional reductions since we presented this in December of 2024. And that's what we want. We don't want this to be, oh, you know what? We made the strategy, we made our goal, let's stop. We want to continuously try to find ways to reduce the deficit. Talent strategy, Chief Hosak has talked about our benefits program. Our benefits program has a really good reserve, and so we've talked about not funding the benefits program for 2 months, so that's the $9 million. Teaching, learning, and leading, it's $3 million. We're meeting consistently with the TLL team to figure out ways that we can make reductions. And technology has reductions of $3.4 million. Chief Rodriguez is moving positions from general operating to bond, as well as looking at contracts. And then district-wide, it's $5 million. And that $5 million is ESSER supplanting. We talked about this a little bit in detail before. There was additional ESSER dollars that we are using to offset utility costs. So when you look at the $26 million strategies are achieved, and as of this, the end of last week, we were at $34.48 million. So we've talked about the strategies, what we've done to make sure that we reduce our deficit, but we want to have a clear, holistic approach when we discuss the FY 24-25 budget. So these are essential additional requests. So additional requests are requests that come in from different departments, different divisions, and these requests come in and they go to our superintendent. And what we want to say when Superintendent Segura and I talk today is all of these requests are valid, right? They're work that we're doing for our kids, for our students. So we're additionally getting requests. I think I've received 2 requests today. So special education, we've given them an additional $10 million as of last semester. They've requested an additional $12 million to get them through the spring. Instructional materials was $7.2 million, and these are all things that we've increased the budget after the budget was passed by you in June of 2024. Technology operational software, when we did the budget, Frontline hadn't been included, and so that's the cost of Frontline. Service center repairs and maintenance, that's $5.7 million. So we've increased their budget. With the service center, we've known year over year that we've given them a budget that will not sustain them. So we're talking about how to make sure this is also an opportunity for us to make sure that our budget is all inclusive of all of the expenses. We need to make sure that everything that we know that we're going to spend is in the budget. In the prior years, we've had the benefit of property value growth, and so if you added additional requests, it was okay because property value growth was increasing. So we need to make sure that we're very clear on our budget. Everything that it takes to run the district needs to be included in the budget, and that we pass a balanced budget.
So, hang on, this is an important slide. I think it needs to be clearly communicated to the board that these are not necessarily new expenses. They're expenses that we have not historically communicated line item by line item in our budget in the way that we need to moving forward. An example of that, special education evaluation contracts. That is not new this year. It was there last year. Service repair and maintenance. There were years ago, the total annual cost was $12 to $15 million, and we just never budgeted that. And so what we, as an organization, would do is just allow for property values to continue to grow, and then it would often offset any kind of misalignments in the budget. And so we need to not do that. What we need to do is to make sure that we are budgeting to actuals. So it's really, really important that, we clearly communicate and identify all things that we spend money on, period. I also want to point out that some of these are forward-facing and some of these are current year. That's not necessarily explicit in this document, but there is a difference between the two. You continue on.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. So now we're going to look at FY 25-26 budget updates. The $47 million that you saw on the Cascade design, this is how we separated between priority focus and subsequent focus. We're saying that we have an estimated of $20 million worth of strategies. That's the hybrid work schedule, and we'll talk about these a little bit more. Transportation reconfigured, master schedule efficiency, PEAMS, portable reductions, contract evaluations, and graduation preparatory academy. And then there's additional $27 million worth of strategies we don't have that we're still researching and trying to find. And some of those ideas that we can cover that is through property monetization efforts, supplemental program growth, evaluate stipends, which Chief Hozak and I are doing. And then finally, we want to say direct impact to campuses. We want to be very clear that we've said this from the beginning, that we want to make sure we're doing everything we can to not have an impact to campus. But if we get to the point where these savings and all of these things that we're working on, we might have to look at impacts to campuses. So when we look at the budget initiative here, master schedule efficiency improvement, this is led by Chief Rodriguez, our Chief of Technology. There's updates that we've already had our first scheduled steering committee meeting. They've convened. There's master schedule working group convened. And then there are next steps. How do we move this work forward? We met with Chief Rodriguez this week, and one of the things we know is master schedule is not going to fix it all. It's not a one and done, so this is going to be something that we work with over multiple years. But how do we try to figure out what savings we can have for FY 25-26? And then PEAMS reform, there's some updates. The PEAMS submission was due today. It had been extended previously, so it was due today, January 30th. There's a Gibson Consulting concurrent PEAMS audit that will be done in spring of 2025. And then there are next steps. So some of the improvements that we've already had with PEAMS is our ECODIS numbers. When we started to analyze them, the number was at 39%. We've since increased that to 52%. Our average daily attendance, we talked about that a little bit ago. We wanted at least 1% growth. We're at 1.41%. And so campuses will be receiving the additional funding that we've talked about. So reforming the PEAMS process is definitely helping us figure out ways that we can keep more of our revenue here at the district. Reconfiguration of transportation routes. This is led by Chief Stingport. Her team has completed research on district's best practices and route modeling. We're looking at ridership. She's looking at everything to see how can we make sure that we constantly maximize what we have to provide the services for our student, but to make sure that we're doing it as efficiently as possible. Her next steps are to refine route modeling, and that will be done in April of 2025. Contract evaluations, this has been led by me. The procurement team has created a vendor performance form. And what this performance form does is it helps us analyze how a vendor is doing. What are their outcomes? What are they giving us? Is it matching back to what we expected? Sometimes we see contracts just roll over year. Oh, we had this vendor, or we had this contract last year, let's just keep it again. And so all contracts in teaching, learning, and leading and technology will be reviewed. It'll be a partnership between the department and the procurement team to start analyzing and to making sure these are things that we really need and we're receiving outcomes from these contracts. This will be implemented when we do the budget for FY 25-26. Portable reductions, this is being led by Chief Steenport is leading the portable reductions, and so we have some updates. She's met with school leadership, and one of the first things we talked about is getting a list of all the portables. And TLL and Chief Steenport have worked together where there might be an extra portable one location and another school needs a portable. How do we move those portables? We have in the past just gone out and released a portable. So we're constantly talking about strategies and ways that we can reduce cost. Hybrid work schedule, this is also led by Chief Steenport. Phase 1 and Phase 2 are completed. The hybrid work schedule began in January 6th, so as soon as we came back from break, and Chief Steenport has done a really good job. It has been a really smooth transition. She has floor plans and diagrams. And then Phase 3 is her next step, and it's projected move-in date for the vendor of March 28th. So for FY 25-26 updates, leadership has met to confirm timelines and verify milestones. Leadership has shared timelines and milestones with the board, and we will continue to do that. There have been scheduling and some have been held, initial steering committee meetings. And then I want to talk about for FY 25-26, the recurring meetings with Travis County Appraisal District. So one of the things we talked about at the beginning of this year is that we passed a deficit budget of $78 million and it increased to $92 million because there was a swing of $14 million. TCAT had told us that our property value growth would be at 6%, and then they ended up coming in at 1%. And so that was a $14 million swing.
So Katrina, I think, I don't want to stop you, but I think it's really important everybody understand when we get that information. So in the last budgeting process, we received that information around April of 2024, when we're in the middle of the budgeting process. The budget is adopted in June of 2024, and then we get final numbers August 1 or July 30th.
Late July, August.
And so so the 6% swing, which had a huge impact, occurred after the budget had already been approved, and the best information we had prior to that was 6% growth ended up being 0. So I just want to kind of put everybody kind of in that moment, because we're about to go through that again right now. Right? Okay, so sorry.
Right, no, please. So we meet regularly now with the chief tax appraiser. Her name is Leanna, and she meets with us every month, and we talk to her about what are her projections. We know that her projections are going to change. When we met with her in late November, early December, she thought that the values would be maybe a 1% growth to 0% growth, and now she's saying a decrease between 9 and 13%. And I want to be really clear that these are her projections, but we have to start planning our budget on these projections, right? So the numbers can change, but these are her projections as of, I believe, maybe a week or two ago.
And Katrina, for extreme clarity, when it was communicated, was it 9 to 13 was kind of the worst scenario?
It was the worst case
Correct.
scenario.
So I just want to make sure that it's a range, but the worst side of that is 9 to 13% property value reduction or decrease. Which means the high end is not likely to be positive, right? The range is not going to be greater than 10% most likely. So.
Right. And then the final, we're continuously reviewing subsequent focus items. So before we start talking about engagement, I'm glad Superintendent Segura has paused and made sure we're very clear. We are moving the work forward. We have FY 24-25 where we're trying to make sure we're doing reductions as well as monitoring the budget and making sure that we don't continuously just blow our deficit. But we're also working with FY 25-26 where we're trying to come up with reduction strategies as well as pass a balanced budget. So it's a lot. And one of the things I hear people saying saying is that it kind of seems like the goalpost is moving. Well, it's a budget, and so these things are going to continuously move, but we are going to make sure that we're transparent and we're coming here and explaining to the board the latest information that we have, with the understanding that these numbers every single day are changing. Like, we never would have thought when we talked to Leanna that was what she was gonna say. I mean, there were points where Austin had 16% property value growth, and so now we're looking at a decrease in those numbers. So all of these things truly impact how we will proceed with processing and putting forth the balanced budget for FY 25-26.
And I think it's also important to talk about just the challenge of going back over and over again, division to division, exploring opportunities for reduction in cost. And I often get asked, well, Matthias, should we wait a little bit because the ledge may do something? And I know we're about to talk about legislative priorities and some of the things that are occurring right now on the ledge. But in 2023, really, we made an investment, and we thought that the ledge, 2024, in
23, 24.
But the ledge was going through the process in 23, through the summer of 2020, summer of 2023. And so we made decisions thinking the ledge would do something at that time, and nothing occurred. And so we're hyper sensitive to assuming that something will happen. And remember then Trustee Boswell making comments around, what's the probability of anything happening? At that point, we felt hopeful. I don't know that we have the luxury or ability to be as hopeful again, no matter what is being said around us. And I guess that's a conversation for the board, but just want to make sure that's cleared. That it can be frustrating, but that's because we're trying to hold that line as best we can.
Yes, I do agree. I think my peers are being as patient as possible, but as long, it is a continuous, go back, okay, can we look at this? Okay, let me see your budget. Let's dive through your whole budget. These are, there has to be, every single thing has to be looked at, right? Like, so, and I do understand for them, as respectfully as possible, it kind of gets a little hard because, Katrina, you've given me a goal, I met your goal, and now you're coming back asking for more, and now you're coming back asking me to see my budget. I understand that, but we have to continuously move the work forward. With the increases that we just saw, we cannot let those roll to our deficit. They can't just be a part of an addition. So the way we need to look at it is, if we're giving more, then we need to cut more, we need to reduce more. I want to talk, I might kind of tag Chief Hosak, but what Superintendent Segura just talked about, that year that we gave rate increases for $65 million, right? And so that is some of the things that continues. We thought that we were going to get additional funds, right? Okay.
Good evening, Board. Yes, that is correct. So when we negotiated that compensation agreement that year, we had good faith that, in a surplus year for the budget for the state, that certainly teachers will be held in high regard in that. And so we took a large gamble on our compensation because we needed to that year. We needed to really push forward, especially coming off of the pandemic and trying to bounce back. Unfortunately, the legislature did not push forward a bill that was helpful to us in that capacity. So we had to dip into our own money to be able to cover that.
And I think it's also important to note that that investment was an important investment, and we also saw a response, right, based on that investment. Vacancy rates, we saw them move in the right direction, attrition rates move in the right direction. Just a lot of things were impacted by that investment, and I think, generally speaking, from a overall support of our staff, it was a good thing, but it was something that, was a challenge for us, and we're seeing that now.
Yes. Thank you, Brandy. So completed engagements, one of the things we heard from, thank you, Chief Hosak. One of the things we've heard over and over from our board is we want to make sure we're having a lot of engagement with our community as well as our staff. So you can see, I believe this is 6 events that we've had over the month of December. So we were really getting out, talking to the community. We had a budget ad hoc committee meeting, and you will see something that Allie and I talk a lot about. On Saturday, we've talked about it. We've never thought that on Saturday, at 11 o'clock in the day, you would have people that would want to talk about the budget. And I believe we've had 100, 150 people attend a Zoom session on a Saturday. And Allie and I are sometimes still on there at 1 o'clock. It is utterly amazing. And I know for me, it was mind-boggling. I thought Saturday, no one's going to want to do this. So we're going to keep doing that because we realize that is one of the ways that we can reach our community. There are future engagement opportunities. The January 21st meeting was rescheduled because of the weather day, but February 5th, we're meeting with principals. This is something Chief Drinks has talked about, is us getting in the front of the principals and bringing them along about where we are. So we're going to have meetings with the principals on February 5th. February 5th, we also have a budget ad hoc meeting. And then February 18th, we're going to talk with aspiring principals. And then we have our Saturday meeting on February 22nd. And then February 27th, the board has a work session of which we'll dig way more into FY 24-25, where are we, where are we projected to go, and FY 25-26, what strategies do we have, what do we think we're going to reduce, and what do we think we need to start doing next. And then in March, Dr. Holly has asked that we present to the Equity Action Committee. And then March 8th, Allie and her team have been creating this event at Mendez Middle School called the Community Connect, and they have all of these wonderful ideas about how to have a station for children, and we'll talk to the children about how to do a budget, and then there'll be a place where Superintendent Segura speaks, and there'll be a place where I speak. We want to get the community engaged in understanding finances, but also the finances of the district. Wednesday, April 2nd, we have an ad hoc meeting. April 12th, April 22nd, and May 3rd, we're going to start continuously meeting with our staff to talk to them about what are next steps with the budget. We did want to have at least one meeting in person, so the April 22nd meeting will be at Austin High School. That's the place where we've had the largest in-person turnout. So that's how we selected Austin High. And then June 4th, there'll be a budget ad hoc meeting. So we've done a survey at each one of these meetings. We've done a survey, and so there have been so far 109 participants, and of that we've received 163 responses. Some of the top responses are keep blend, advocacy at the state legislation, utility controls, transportation partnership, 4-day instruction work week, consolidated under-enrolled school campuses, eliminate travel and cell phone stipends. Chief Hosak and I are working on a plan for that. Keep 6 of 8. Evaluate teacher-student ratios, and increase multipurpose usage at facilities, so using Facilitron. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Jacob Breach, and then I'll be here available to answer any questions.
Thanks for switching.
Yes.
All right, so aligned with thinking through our budget and our funding needs, we do also want to give a legislative update around some budget work. So we are in the middle of Texas legislative session. At the start of the session, both the House and the Senate did file their budget bills. And those 2 squares at the top are just kind of a summary of those budget bills. The House filed a bill for $335.7 billion. The Senate's was a little different, $332.9 billion. These are, just as a reminder, for 2 years. So it is 2 fiscal years included in there. One thing that we saw in both of these budgets is that the current law foundation schools program funding was maintained. So both budgets assumed about property value growth across all of Texas, averaged out of right around 5%. They also included the full $1.7 billion that would be needed to fund enrollment growth, so new students to Texas public schools. And in addition, both budgets include the automatic increases that were promised back from HB3 to our Tier 2 golden penny yields. For Austin ISD, that's really important. That's basically the amount we earn per penny per WADA on our tax money. So that will go from 129.52 per penny to 132.4 in this upcoming year, and then to 140.02 the year after.
And Jacob Reach, Dr. Reach, what's WADA?
WADA is weighted average daily attendance For Austin ISD, we're around 85,700 WADA. So that's obviously higher than the number of kids that we have. And the reason is because the weights are sometimes higher per student. So a student who receives general education services may just be weighted as a 1, but a student who receives intensive special education services may be weighted as a 5. So then they average all those weights together. And then you also, of course, consider your attendance. So that student who was a 1, but was only in attendance 90% of the time is now a 0.9. And so then when you add all of those up together, that's how you get your WADA, and that's how the state funds you based off of weights. So what this means is that increase of about $3 in year 1, and then another, what would that be, 7.5 in year 2. You know, we could multiply that by that 85,000, and that would be about the additional money that we would keep that originally would have gone to recapture. And it's not quite a straight 1-to-1, but it almost is. You know, like we now pay $400,000 less on recapture, and we get an additional $400,000. Not quite 1-to-1, but it's very close. So that's some good news. It also includes the funding that is needed for the 3.3 cents of additional tax rate compression. So when the state buys down the rate, they then make up to school districts how much they bought down the tax rate. So the bill right now could change that overall rate up to 3.3 cents, and they've ensured that there's enough money in the system to cover that for school districts. In addition, both the Senate and the House budgeted an additional, this is on top of what I already talked about, $3.5 billion for new tax relief. The Senate earmarked $3 billion of that to increase the homestead exemption from $100,000 to $140,000, or $150,000 if you are over 82. And they also included $500 million that would just be used for business tax relief. And they haven't spelled out what that would look like yet. The House, on the other hand, budgeted the $3.5 billion, but they did not make any statements on how that would look. So a future bill would basically spell out how the House version of that tax relief would look. In addition, the House budget has $4.85 billion for education, while the Senate, very similar, but a little different, has $4.9 billion for education. Again, the House budget does not tie that education funding to any single issue. So really the details on what the House plan would look like and how that money would be spent would come through future legislation. The Senate, but one thing that the House does have in there that is in both the House and the Senate plan is $450 million for teacher retirement system active care. And that's the state's health insurance plan. And why that's nice for TRS districts, Austin ISD is self-insured and not part of active care. So we would receive $0 out of that additional support. And as a matter of fact, many large urban and suburban districts are self-insured, so that actually does not support those districts. The Senate plan, on the other hand, with their $4.9 billion, they really spelled out how they want to spend that. They stated that they want to see it in teacher compensation, and they also called aside $750 million of that just for the teacher incentive allotment and building on the teacher incentive allotment. Now, some things that we've heard is that that could also be an increase of that teacher incentive allotment into a new program, like a principal incentive allotment, but $750 million of it is dedicated to that. The rest would be spent on teacher compensation, and while not in the bill, the Lieutenant Governor has already stated that he expects that there would be a $4,000 raise for all teachers, and that teachers in a rural area would see an additional $6,000, which would bring them up to $10,000. And just to give you an idea, Texas has about 384,000 teachers in the state. So that takes up about all of that funding per year. Because again, this is 4.9 for 2 years. You divide it in half. All those teachers at 4,000 would bring you almost to $2 billion when you consider some of those being at 10. And so then you double that and then have the $750 million. That's all of the funding that the Senate set aside. So there would be very little, if any, money left over for other priorities based off of what the Senate budgeted. Both chambers also allocated $200 million for safety and security, and they both did allocate these in similar ways. it would be based on just doubling the existing allotments. So right now we receive $15,000 per campus. That would be changed to $30,000 per campus. And then we get $10,000, oh my goodness, $10 per student, and that would be doubled to $20 per student. So that would be a big support for Austin ISD in all districts, especially as long as those HB3 requirements still exist. And so that's in both chambers. It is separate from the 4.8 and 4.9 I just talked about, and they already look pretty similar. So it seems likely that that's the type of bill that we're going to see move forward for school safety. Both chambers also allocated $1 billion for a ESA or voucher bill. And this is a little over double what they budgeted last year. The budgets themselves do not offer any details on what those would look like. They're just placeholders. However, the Senate did already file a bill. They titled their bill the Texas Education Freedom Act, and they've actually already had a hearing on the bill, and they've already passed that bill out of committee just yesterday. So overall, it seems like that bill, which is Senate Bill 2, is being somewhat fast-tracked in the Senate. So you may know the House and the Senate actually cannot pass legislation until the 60th day of the session. That's part of the Texas Constitution. However, the governor can name something an emergency item. And if he names it an emergency item, then that law is bypassed, and those bills can be voted on right away. And the governor is actually scheduled to give his State of the State this Sunday at 2 p.m., and most likely, he will say, here are my emergency items for the session. He can do those at any time, but it's very common that at a State of a State address, the governor will name his emergency items. And so it is possible that this priority could be named emergency, allowing the Senate to vote on it right away. So before I end, I want to briefly break down what that Senate Bill 2 looks like right now. Obviously, it may change as it goes forward. If the Senate were to pass it, as you know, it then has to go to the House, where it can also be discussed and amended, and then they have to either work together to find a compromise bill or pass one of the other bills. But right now, that Senate Bill 2 would create a universal education savings account program that can be accessible from all Texas students. They did state, however, that if the applications exceeded the available resources, so $500 million a year, the bill would then delegate 80% of all those funds to students who previously attended a public school the year prior and are either from a low-income household or the student is receiving special education services. They also would provide $10,000 per student, but if the student is receiving special education services, it would be $11,500. And then finally, the bill as currently written would provide $2,000 for all homeschool students, although there is a note written into the bill that amount could be reset by appropriation. Some quick math may tell you that Texas, while we don't know our exact number of homeschool students, because since 1994, we have been a very open state for homeschool. Good estimates are probably somewhere between 500,000. That's probably on the high side, but there are some organizations out there that have claimed it's as high as 650,000. But if you're using 500,000, again, some quick math will tell you, well, that's all the money that's set aside right there. That 500,000 times 2,000 each is all the money that's set aside. So obviously, there'll still need to be some discussion around that. There are some additional measures for transparency and accountability in this bill. It includes that any recipient who receives an education savings account must take a nationally normed reference assessment or STAR every year, and that the results of that assessment would have to be shared with the state and part of an annual report that's published by the comptroller. And then the other part of the bill states that school districts could charge fees back to students to provide them support services or to a private school. So that could range, and obviously there would need to be some more discussion on how that could look like, but that could range anything from potentially fees for taking part in athletics, to providing special education services to those students, to taking part in other extracurricular at a local school district. All right, and so as I mentioned, that bill did pass the Senate just 2 days ago, and we're now waiting to see the next action from the Senate and also from the House. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all of that information. There was a lot there, and I really appreciate the transparency and the look at the great work that's been done and the hard new information we have that we're going to navigate. And thank you for talking about how you're going to work through that with our community. I see that Trustee Foster has a question.
Thank you both for the two angles of the presentation, the ongoing budget updates, and while there's new, this is also something that we're sort of regularly briefed on, which I really appreciate. So I'll just limit my question to helping understand how what's happening in the legislature articulates with what's going on in our schools and our needs. And so just as a first question, $4,000 raise for teachers generally, an additional $6,000 for rural teachers. Is that, to our knowledge, indexed to anything? What are those monies? What's that relate to?
To the best of my knowledge, it's not like related to the average U.S. teacher pay or anything like that.
Or cost of living here or there?
Yeah. Ms. Hosek, have you heard of it being aligned to any? But was the 4,000 aligned to something? No.
No, okay. Got it. So just trying to understand the genesis of the wisdom that produces their numbers. Secondly, when it comes to school safety, we were at $10 per student, proposed to double it to 20, $15K per campus, proposed to double it to, I guess, 30. So when we get to $20 per student and $30K per campus, what's the relationship between that and our mandated provision of security services? Does that get us there? Does that even the books?
Well, it obviously gets us closer than we were before. For our large campuses, it would cover the singular mandate of having a armed SRO at the campus, but also at many of our large campuses, we have more than one SRO. So we're already even farther ahead in those. So no, it will not cover the cost, the requirements of having an SRO at every campus, but it does get us much closer than we were.
So it's still.
It will cover it for a few campuses simply because of their size and that they have one SRO.
So it puts a dent in, but we're still talking about an underfunded mandate where we would have to look to other spaces within our budget to make ends meet.
Yes, 100%.
Thanks. Then finally, when it comes to the $10,000 vouchers, and I hear some talk about service to low-income students, and we have in our community that is an important part of our demographic as the majority of our students who are counted as low income. Do we have any evidence within the state or nationwide of vouchers helping in aggregate low-income students? Do we have any evidence of students not currently enrolled in private schools now able to take advantage of that option because of a voucher?
Yeah. Trustee Foster, I know that there's a lot of research out there, and research comes from different groups, and so they may present that different thesis in different ways, to show what they're at. I think that one thing that's probably clear to your point is that in most states that have universal vouchers, the students who are utilizing them were already attending private school, or most likely would have anyway, because maybe they have a sibling who's already there or something similar. And that data differs between, how many were already in a public school the year before. I don't want to say numbers off the top of my head, but I believe that the study I just read on Arizona was that 6% of the current kids who receive it were in a public school the year prior.
60?
Six. Yeah. But obviously, it's going to be different,
Right.
Per states. And there really is a lot of different ways to look at that data. Mm-hmm. So I know there's a lot of different research out there.
Well, I'd be interested in all of our students having the greatest opportunity for the greatest education, including students and families exercising choice. As I think about our students and where they land, and I look at other states, what I have seen is that the vouchers end up not serving our low-income students, that the vouchers end up serving those who are already enrolled by way of effectively a tax break for our highest income families. So hopefully at some point I'll be disavowed of this and somebody will show me how this will work to our kids' benefit. But right now I'm a little confused as to whether that's the case. And so I didn't hear you tell me any different.
He didn't.
Fair enough. Okay. All right. Well, that's some important contextualization for me. I look forward to more updates and following the funding papers as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Foster. I think Trustee Quintana has a question next.
Yes, my question is, how might changes show up in the future in regards to all of the federal mandates and any budget cuts at the federal level? Are we considering that at the same time that we are considering our state budget?
So, Trustee Quintana, I think the best way to respond to this is we're thinking through how to measure what the potential impacts could be, and recognizing that every day there appears to be new information that has us kind of re-baseline the assumption. But we do believe that there will be an impact. I just can't say for certain what that will be, which I think reinforces Ms. Montgomery's position of it has to be a balanced budget. And when we say balanced budget, we're not increasing the deficit, period. And in fact, it actually, if anything, we should bring it down a little bit. So, but as information comes out and clarity is provided, we will model that for certain.
Thank you. Trustee Coffin.
Thank you. I'll start with a couple questions on the proposed legislation and then go back to some questions for Ms. Montgomery on the budget. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because I think it's going to change tremendously, like you said, with the House taking over. But I wanted to clarify one thing that was on there. When you talked about the 80% of seats kind of being reserved, if there are excess number of applications for the vouchers, that 80% of the vouchers would go to students who are either economically disadvantaged or intellectual or have a disability, right? So the piece I didn't hear you mention is that in the Senate Bill 2, the low-income household is defined as a household with a total annual income that is at or below 500% of the federal poverty guidelines. And the 2025 federal poverty guidelines for a household of 4 is $32,150. So they're defining students who are economically disadvantaged as families of 4 who are making less than $160,000 a year. So I just want to make that kind of clear to anyone who is listening to this discussion that that bill is not targeted to the families that TEA or AISD defines as families living in poverty. So with a question on that, how does TEA and AISD define economically disadvantaged for a family of 4?
We follow the federal free and reduced lunch guidelines, which is 120%. I believe.
I'd love to just get some clarification on that.
We could
because
definitely verify it. I believe it's 120%.
I just think anyone who is advocating or who is listening, I think that's really important that that piece not be slipped in as, oh, we're benefiting kids who are living in poverty. It also says to reserve those spots for students who have disabilities, but I wanted to clarify also that Senate Bill 2, it requires perhaps some of those slots to go to students, but it does not require any of the schools who students are attending with the vouchers to provide special education services. It only requires them to notify the families about their rights and to indicate like what, but it does not in any way require them to service those students with the services that a public school district is required to and gladly does provide. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Ms.
It's
Montgomery.
$57,720.
Okay, so our students, we define it as $57,000 for a family of four, but the voucher bill defines it as $160,000. Okay, thank you. So just 3 clarification questions on the budget presentation, though, Ms. Montgomery. 1 is a clarification and 2 are actual questions. On the part where you talk about talent strategy, having $9.1 million of savings based on having a healthy surplus of funds in our benefits accounts, you mentioned how by not paying into that for 2 months, there'd be a $9.1 million savings. I just want to clarify what I think I understood from our previous presentation. That is not cutting benefits in any way to employees. It's not contributing into the reserve fund that is there to self-insure for when we do have claims. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct, but we'll,
Chief Hosek can answer that question.
Good evening again. Thank you for the question, Trustee Kaufman. I'm happy to say that our benefits team has mitigated large claims, and so we have quite a healthy balance, and so we can stand to not have that set aside for 2 months and still feel very comfortable with where we are. It is not cutting benefits in any way. In fact, we have the most robust benefits plan we've had in quite some time right now.
Thank you. I think it's really important to clarify that we're not impacting employees' benefits to save money. Thank you. All right, 2 actual questions. When you talked about the master schedule efficiency, reducing expenditures, what is actually being cut in that case? Like, how are the savings being generated through efficiency? Does that mean fewer teachers? Does that mean fewer what?
So I'll start, and then certainly Chief Hosek can chime in. So I think, Trustee Kaufman, there's an understanding right now that every single school creates their master schedule in a different way. And so there are no standards, and when you don't have clear standards on how to produce it regarding how it's built, the controls, the review process, inefficiencies just occur at the scale that we are. And so one of the opportunities is to really evaluate just putting controls in place. That's one. I think further out, and this is going to require an analysis that's going to occur over the spring semester, we need to understand, are there efficiencies in how we just create the schedule, not control the development of the schedule, but the students that are used as the foundation for the master schedule, the controls around how we manage certain sections. Because what we found is that when they're inefficient, when I say inefficient, you sometimes are asking for positions when a reconfiguration master schedule would say that you don't need those positions. So I think it's both. It's not necessarily the structural components of going from 6 out of 8 to 7 out of 8. That would be a separate.
I understand. So I understand efficiencies are meant to provide the same services, but in a more efficient way.
Right.
But you don't save money by being efficient. You save money by reducing your expenditures. So by being efficient, what are we reducing expenditures on? On teachers?
Well,
because we can provide the same educational services with fewer teachers. Are we saving it because we can provide the same educational services with larger class sizes, with fewer options for students? Like, what is it that we're saving money on?
Go ahead.
Really, it's to control the growth of FTEs that trickle out over the course of the school year, to be honest. That is one way. So when we have a master schedule get locked up and say, I need another teacher, and then that happens 20 or 30 times over the course of a year, then you're in the millions of dollar range, right? So there's that. And that is really, it's really to prevent unnecessary growth. Further, if it is built in an incredibly efficient way, oftentimes we'll have secondary campuses, believe it or not, that will not fill a position because they don't need it. And so they're self-managing in that way. But really, it's to control the growth. That's not really necessary.
Okay, that helps, because I think, again, it's just it's a mysterious kind of savings when it's like, what does that mean? Does it mean that your counselor spends less time on it, so you don't pay them? I mean, that's very different from describing it this way. So thank you. And I support the idea. I just want to be clear. It means that we're reducing the growth in the number of teachers we have to provide, when we can instead make sure that our classes are scheduled in a way that maximizes the availability of classes for kids but we're not talking about making super big class sizes. We're not talking about cutting a whole bunch of options for kids. We're not going to offer this class here anymore because
No, that is not when we talk about master schedule efficiency, it is not, again, as the superintendent said, that would, if we were to do a formula change, that's a separate
Okay.
item.
Excellent.
But I will say that part of master schedule efficiency is to build that master schedule on student choice. And so if we build it on the certifications that are within the building versus what the students are choosing to take, that is also an inefficiency. And so we need to make sure that we're doing master schedules off of student choice.
Okay. And then I have, my final question, I have the same question for the transportation. So with route reconfiguration, again, more efficient, but what are we saving money on? Bus drivers, gas, maintenance? So we're reducing, what are we reducing, I
Reducing
guess?
wear and tear on the bus, the time and FTE.
Right. And just to clarify your question, you're just asking about what are we looking at?
Well, what are we
for-
cutting, I
what-
guess? Are we making routes longer so that kids spend more time on bus, but we have fewer drivers? Are we making buses filling more seats instead of having 2 half-empty buses? We have 1 full bus? Like, how are we saving money with that?
Right. I think we're looking at everything. We're also looking at programming and where we're delivering our students. That's something that transportation does every year with our routes. And when we have our students put in our student information system, we're looking at where they are and how we can best utilize routes. We know that they change. Usually, right, we're starting school, we run the route, and then we readjust after 4 weeks, and we keep readjusting those routes, and you'll see those changes. We continue to look at it throughout the year, but I think what we're really looking at is being efficient and looking at our programming, right? We do some nuanced things in AISD, and so those are the things that we're really exploring and making sure, is this something that we're going to continue? If not, can we create other ideas, and what are other districts doing, and what have other districts done, so we can be as efficient as possible.
Okay. And I would just ask that we kind of be informed through the board update or something if the transportation changes end up resulting in reduced access to students to classes, reduced access to programming, right? So some of the things we spend money on transportation for student share, for access to a dual language campus, for access to the International Welcome Center, for transportation to specialized services that the student might need for special education. Just if things like that are being reduced in order to, I would just like to know that that's what we're deciding to do.
Well, and I think it's also important to note that, we have data that shows that there are programs being accessed where you have 2 or 3 students consuming an entire bus, right? So the bus itself and the staff on the bus is the driving cost. So is there a more efficient way to provide access to that student without having to provide a huge yellow bus? And so that is what we have to, it's not necessarily, it's recognizing that 3 seats out of, what is it, 80?
48.
48 is not efficient, right? And we have data that shows that we have lots of those occurring. So we just have to think about it a little bit differently.
Yeah, so if it's the efficiency, in the spirit of transparency, I just want to make sure that if we are looking at reducing transportation to magnet programming, reducing transportation to special education programs, we be direct about that and not let it be perceived that we're doing that without communicating it in advance.
Yeah, and so magnet programming is one that we are exploring. It's one that we talked about in November and December. We've met with different principals. We're having ongoing conversations. And so, do you want to say something, Ally?
Yeah.
But that is one that we are committed to exploring.
I'm not asking for an explanation of all that now. I just want to ensure that as we make those decisions, we're following the guardrails around community engagement, mitigating the potential impacts to families, making sure people know in advance that we can plan and make decisions with people instead of to people. So I don't really need an explanation of them now. I just want to make sure that we're following the guidelines on the details of these things, not just the big picture. Oh, we talked to the public about efficient bus routes, but did we talk with the community whose services are being cut about those changes? So that's all. I don't really need an explanation now, but I'd love to hear from Ally, though.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to give y'all an update because we began doing some phone banking a couple weeks ago to magnet families, and we did disaggregate data and prioritize families who are classified as economically disadvantaged in those phone calls. But we were not getting as many folks answering the phone as we had hoped, and so we did end up just doing a survey as well to kind of complement that, and that actually went out last evening. It was texted and emailed to all of our magnet families. We already have over 1,100 responses there. And then it will go in the newsletters for families and staff this week as well, and we'll be putting it on socials. So, because we understand it's not just about folks who are already in our magnet schools, but as well as folks who might be considering it anytime in the future.
All right, yes, trustee De Udioste.
I wanted to pivot back to the voucher bill one more time. In regards to the extra 1,500 and the 11.5 total for students with special education needs, given our own efforts to, stay staffed and to offer, high-quality services for those students, do we think that's anywhere near enough money? And in the context of, would that present any challenge to us remaining staffed or remaining able to offer competitive services compared to what might be available to the families accessing a voucher if they had special needs kids?
I want to make sure I understand. So you mean like if that family was buying back services from us for the students' special education needs?
If they were looking somewhere else, are there even enough providers in the greater Austin area? Would they be able to find anything that would be competitive to what we're offering? And in relation to that, would that put any strain on our ability to continue to staff appropriately for our own services that we're offering? Are people going to be going to the private sector for that?
Sure. I think to your first question of there's not a lot of current existing capacity. I don't know how the capacity could expand for other private schools. I don't know. I mean, I know some small level information on like the cost of private schools. I know that the vast majority of them are greater than that amount, greater than the $10,000, but I can't speak to tuition for all the different private options that are available. I do know that there are more limited number of private schools that specialize with students with special services. We do have one in Austin who we partner with sometimes with training and with some other work. We would plan to continue to partner with them. I also know that their tuition is over $30,000 a year. So much greater than that cost is, right? Now they're doing that because they're teaching like 2-to-1 and 3-to-1 with those students. As far as would that be enough to even buy back services from us, we actually do have what we call is, for lack of a better term, a buyback manual. What would be the cost of our services if we provided them to an outside partner? And this is something that we help develop because we partner with a lot of these pre-K centers that aren't ours, but we're working with them, especially with some special education services and some other services. And of course, those costs themselves can quickly add up. You're talking costs of like $100 an hour. And when you need, so for instance, speech services, I want to say it's the most common service, and I hope I'm not wrong on that. Yes, okay, that's what I thought. The speech service is the most common service. And I will speak for my own experience. My student is receiving it twice a week for, 40 minutes a week. So that quickly adds up over the year. So I think to answer that question, that would probably not even be enough money to just buy back the required service from the school district, even if you were to leave and use that money for that purpose. I feel like I only answered half of the question.
Yeah, well, no, because that's the foundational part. Where I was kind of trying to end with that, would that pose any risk to our own ability to hire competitive staff? Which it's not to answer for you, but it sounds like you're saying no because it wouldn't be enough to pay staff to be in the private sector doing that.
I think that's correct.
Okay.
And I think that's correct.
I just have a quick, do you have?
I just want to say, there is just so much risk and uncertainty that we are all dealing with and that y'all are dealing with, and I appreciate how safe and conservative we're being with the budget and how we are still keeping our kids first. And, talking to Chief Hosak, I don't think anyone regrets investing in our teachers as, tight as it is right now, because our kids have gotten what they need. And when, we came and, when Matthias and I and this board came together, we were in a really, really tough and scary, scary spot. And it's tough right now. Our community is tough too, and they have our backs. And we're just going to have to keep plowing forward with the work. And I'm really, really grateful because I know it's tough for everyone right now. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I appreciate that. I just have one comment first. Thank you for the attendance growth update. Those are exciting numbers. I know that represents a lot of work by our families, a lot of great work by our staff to give students a reason to be there. And I know it improves our students, well-being, their academic achievement, and it increases the funds we have available to do that. So thank you for that. That's exciting to hear, and you did better than we thought we would, and that's exciting. So thank you for that, and I look forward to seeing, I know that project continues, so thank you for that. I have a quick question about the supplanting of utility costs with ESSER dollars and pausing the contribution to the health plan. Those, to me, and I might misunderstand it, seem like one-time investments. Is there a plan for, but we have ongoing costs. So what's the plan, or is there a plan for that?
Right, thank you very much for that question, President Boswell. That's part of the fix, right? Like, so we want to make sure that we're reducing this year's deficit by any way that we can, right? And so the $9 million from the benefits plan is one way to do that. Because if we didn't do that, then you'd have to roll that $9 million back into the deficit. So you're right, these are one-time infusions of cash, just as if we sold or monetized property. But so it is going to help us for this fiscal year because we're not rolling as much of our deficit into the fund balance, but then we're also gonna have to figure out something again for next year.
And President Boswell, one of the things that we attempted to do with a 3-year plan is acknowledge that some of this very difficult work takes time. And so the way that we can help create space to do the work is to ensure that the fund balance isn't adversely impacted in a significant way without injecting with one-time cash infusions. And so it's really this balance, as Ms. Montgomery mentioned, and these help, but they're not the solution long-term. But what it does help us do is actually go through a comprehensive analysis like the master schedule, which cannot be done, in a month or two. It is literally, 6 to 9 months worth of work. And so I think that's why this balance and complement of capital injections, one-time, reduction in costs, and then long-term fixed cost reductions, all of those together are what will get us to where we need to be. And then cross our fingers something happens at the ledge, but who knows?
Okay, thank you both for that. I appreciate that. And again, thank you for the TCAT update. And Ms. Montgomery, you said you're meeting once a month?
Yes, ma'am. We meet with the chief appraiser once a month. She has been very willing to work with us and have conversations. Even if we reach out to her and call her just on the spot, she's always available. And I think it's really good about us building those relationships, not being in isolation. So I think Chief Reach was like, how did we get this information? We got it because we have that relationship with Tiana, with Liana.
Great, thank you for that. So I appreciate that, and I know we're going to start having more frequent budget meetings. We do have a budget retreat coming up.
Yes.
We're going to be talking about the budget, our scorecards, student achievement, kind of in more depth, and kind of how we align all of that. So I look forward to that, and this is a good foundation for going into that. I know we spent more time than we had allotted, but I think it's really helpful to have us and the community kind of understand that foundation. So thank you for that time. And I would love either in all of our, I know it'll be in our upcoming budget, any new information you get about that, but in a month, if we don't have a budget conversation in a month, I would love to see that in our board update. That would be very helpful to have, just so we're monitoring it together.
Yes, we've committed to giving the board a budget update every month. So
Excellent.
it'll be
Perfect.
continuing information.
Thank you so much.
To the extent possible, providing updates regarding the key assumptions that are used to build the budget.
Great.
Right, average daily attendance, we can, the property growth or loss, so yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you all. Okay, we're good. So we'll now move to public testimony for items on consent agenda. Members of the public wishing to participate in the public testimony portion of our meeting called a dedicated AISD phone line in advance of the meeting to sign up to speak in person or to audio record their remarks. Tonight, no callers signed up to speak in person, and we have one caller who left a recorded message. We'll now play that recorded message for public testimony, so please listen carefully.
Good evening. My name is Noelita Lugo. I'm speaking on agenda item 10.3. I encourage each board member to vote in favor of the 10-year ground lease with the United Way. As a parent of two P students, my hope has been that one day those halls can be filled with the sound of joyful learning and laughter of children. This lease and partnership will ensure that happens. Thank you.
Thank you. That feels very full circle. I love that. It wasn't a poem, but it feels very, very full circle. This concludes our public testimony. Trustees, do we have any questions or clarifications? Excellent. So thank you, everyone. As a reminder, please feel free to share any general comments or questions on non-voting items with the board by email at trustees@austinisd.org. You are also welcome to email us about voting items. You can email us about anything that is important to you. Next is our information reports. Next up is item 6.1, Mendez and Third Future, the 1882 update. We have 15 minutes allocated to this. As part of our 1882 agreement with Third Future at Mendez, we've asked the partner to provide quarterly updates. Mr. Craddock and Principal Willis have provided a recorded presentation that's included in our agenda item tonight. You can find that on board docs if you'd like to watch that. And they shared a presentation with backup data. We've scheduled 15 minutes, and we have a third person here who we haven't met yet, so we'll ask you to introduce yourself in a minute as well. Mr. Segura, can you please introduce everybody?
Absolutely. Well, I think you did a really good job. So I'd like to welcome up Mr. Zach Craddock and Principal Jeremiah Willis here from Third Future to answer your questions. And please introduce yourself as well.
I was really looking forward to introducing myself last time. I am Miss Elizabeth Oyuki Miranda Ramirez.
Assistant Principal at Mendez.
AP, yes. Assistant Principal, yes.
President Boswell, Trustees, Superintendent Segura, thank you for your time. It's a pleasure to be here again. Do we want us to represent, or are we just here for questions?
Just here to answer questions that the board may have.
Well, we're happy to be here, and we appreciate all the support. We had a great visit today from several of your team about some possible work at Mendez and expansion and other programs, so we're looking forward to accommodate that. It was a great tour, so we're all yours.
All right, trustees, any questions? Trustee Foster?
Thanks for the presentation, and I do understand why we have our presentations online, and I do wish that they were in person, because I think a lot of people lose out and don't see the challenges, the good stuff, all that. So thank you for the online presentation, which is available to the public online under our agenda. One just baseline question, and then some questions about some good things that have been going on. The first is, how's our enrollment compare to last year?
It's about the same. We're at 205 students with an 88% ADA rate, so our enrollment's stable. Our ADA rate has climbed 8 percentage points this year over last year.
Right, so I noticed that, and so just as a level setting, so thank you. We're about at the same place in enrollment, and yet you had a pretty significant increase in your daily attendance. And I just wanted to hear a little bit about that, the strategies behind that, et cetera.
Yes, already.
So we're really excited. We've been bringing in our families just that much more, and I think pairing up with our families and the community has helped our attendance. For example, last year we were doing band concerts, and we had a Glam Mavs show that our wonderful Miss Jackson was in charge of, in addition to hosting sporting events. But this year we've already put through holiday food drives. We had a Thanksgiving lunch that brought parents in, and we don't give them too much information. We just want to invite them in, just see their face and meet them, and just have a good experience with them. And I know Trustee Quintanilla joined us at a Loteria night, which we will also be hosting. We'll be hosting another one February the 13th. So I invite you guys to come out. In addition to a morning meeting with coffees and donuts with parents. Just these opportunities at family engagement that we've been implementing, I think, has really helped increase our attendance.
So I hear stuff about sort of engaging activities.
Yes.
I hear stuff about service-oriented activities.
Yes.
And then just in the clip, you had talked about like phone calls and stuff like that. So there's also
Yes.
a piece that has to do more narrowly with the academics and all that. Is that a piece as well?
Yes, yes, sir. So we make positive phone calls. I mean, and it's just, and we also give out letters. So teachers have, it's a positive mail, and it's just a template saying, hey, you know, your student has been doing great. The teacher signs it, puts a little note, and we send it home with the student. In addition to that, all the positive phone calls will document it on ECST regarding academics, they're doing well, or hey, this is how they're progressing. But yes, absolutely.
Awesome. And numbers, well, I can't say numbers don't lie because sometimes people use numbers to lie, but I think our numbers aren't lying here. So, you know, the 80 to 88%, that is significant and worth understanding a little bit more. So thank you for that.
Can I say
Likewise,
something on that, sir, too? But since this time last year,
Yeah.
I've been monitoring it every Monday during my director's meeting. So every Monday that's
Attention.
reported. Every Monday that's reported out. I want to know the enrollment and the ADA. And when
Got it.
it's down, even a point, we're asking why.
thank you. And that's the time on task, right? So, likewise, another area that is quite astounding, and I'd like to know more about it because it's dramatically astounding, has to do with, I guess it was suspension rates or suspension numbers. And I can't remember, I think 157 to 44, or some dramatic drop. That might speak to sort of, what does that speak to?
I'm sure I could point to a lot of things as far as just, I think the main thing when it comes to the suspensions is just the consistency in which we've implemented some of the things that we've done year one. I don't think we made a lot of changes to the way we handle discipline as far as the steps that we take before, you know, students are sent home. I think the team and them returning, because we have the majority of our staff coming back, and them just having a better grasp for the expectations, they are able to just kind of stay on top of it more. I think it's just the consistency of it all, honestly. I wish I had a better answer for.
I can tell you.
Okay.
Okay. He has a veteran staff that are highly proficient. He has the highest proficient staff in Third Future Network, and I think these are our two strongest administrators. The culture they've set there is consistent. Everyone's consistent and fair. They do simple and clear communication. Their teachers they're a team and they collaborate well. When you walk into Mendez Middle School, there's not one adult there that's wasted time or wasted space. They're all working second floor instruction for all the kids. So I have the pleasure of visiting all 11 campuses in 3 states, and what I tell them, and I tell them at principal's meeting, it just feels tight. And when you walk in that building, you know what's going on.
So shared understandings among staff, and you're saying that, I guess, so I'm assuming a higher retention rate than we saw?
The highest in the network, sir.
What's the retention rate from last year?
82% is the network average. He's pushing 90%.
Y'all weren't at 82% last year.
The year before. This coming year, so from 23-24 to 24-25, he's pushing 90% staff retention rate.
Got it. Yeah, I seem to recall a dramatically different number in the past, and that this is more than just a tweak. That's commendable. Retention rates are another thing that tell us a story. So I appreciate hearing that. And then I guess the other piece, and I don't know what the student mobility or the retention rate among students is, but you're saying did you have more students return as well?
No, because naturally we're going to have 50% of our population is going to be new every year. 7th graders coming in.
Okay, so the piece isn't about the student acclimation, it is this on the staff side.
Yes.
I see. Okay. Well, it's all interesting, and it's all obvious, definitely worthy of note and gratitude to see attendance up, to see suspensions down, et cetera. I won't ask about 6th grade expansion, although I have questions about that some other time. And you hit my question on teacher retention rates just in your answer. I have one more thing I want to ask you all about, and it's because it's something that could be potentially wonderful, but it's also something that I have automatic concerns about just for anywhere. And this as someone who has participated in certain activities. So you have an MMA club, And
Yes.
I'm sure you get the questions all the time, so I'd love to hear the specific philosophy and practices within that club, because it can range very widely from stuff that's great for kids to developmentally inappropriate and a whole bunch of bad things.
Gotcha. Yeah, we're very intentional with regards to student safety there. Miss Margot is our instructor, someone from the community. I believe Miss Margot has a black belt and all other kind of belts.
yes.
Yep, with karate and yep. So she's very well versed in the profession or whatnot. Safety is always priority. We have gloves. We have. They're not punching each other. They're not taking each other to the ground and things like
There's
that.
no sparring,
Yeah,
sir.
there's if anything, it's just hitting the mitts, just kind of the basic foundational pieces of mixed martial arts.
And to be clear, when it comes to mixed martial arts, or when it comes to all sporting stuff, it's not just the practices that are engaged, hitting, not hitting, sparring, not sparring. It's the philosophy of practice behind the instruction, behind the coaching. So what are the life lessons? What are the takeaways? What's going on? That's actually more to what I'm getting at, because
Gotcha.
if the other stuff was happening, we'd be non-starter. But so it's really more about the philosophical. Do you understand what I'm asking? Mm-hmm. And and maybe if you have insights into that.
I think the biggest part of it is just the discipline side of it, being able to manage your emotions, control your emotions, and something that can be productive. I think that's probably the biggest part that we're able to hit with most of our students that take advantage of that class, is just the discipline side, to being able to regulate their emotions in a more positive way, and something that can maybe serve them better if they decide to go into that field later on. So I would say more so the discipline side, the regulation of emotions.
And can I say, when we started, this was part of our dyad concept. We started in 2019. And what we saw with a lot of our students is we really wanted to focus in on not mixed martial arts, but various discipline of martial arts. So taekwondo, karate, judo, so forth. We never really did jiu-jitsu. And then as we expanded that became more and more popular. Kids and students were requesting mixed martial arts because of USC. And so the key in hiring our teachers for this is it's about the structure of the discipline. So whatever that, it's mixed martial arts, but they may be a specialist in taekwondo, judo, jiu-jitsu, whatever it may be. It's about the character building, the discipline, the work ethic, the attention to detail. You have to come ready. You can't look sloppy when you go to a dojo and your mom and dad's paying $50 an hour for it. You're gonna come ready. And so that's the principles that we've tried to embed in that, and we try and hire for that.
Got it. Very helpful, thank you. And interest of time and stuff, I won't ask you all more questions, but I do appreciate the clear indicators of some really cool progress. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Trustee Foster. Other questions? Trustee Singh?
Thank you so much. I wanted to ask about the years of growth. Could you talk a little bit about the growth in the NWEA scores and what you attribute that to?
Two things, well, really three things. So first is the number one variable in student achievement is the quality of instruction. And we measure that. Key action number one in our action plan is we measure that, and we measure it in December, we measure it in May. 87% of the spot observations done at Mendez were proficient, and that's by an outside team. His metric was 75%. The May metric is 85%. They were exceeded that. A lot of that has to do with the retention, so people have years of experience. Second is the fidelity to our instructional model. We call it the LSAE model. We measure that in December and May, and Mendez was proficient. And lastly, and most important, is leadership. So we have two of the best instructional leaders that I've worked with. I've sent them both to other campuses to model and coach principals. And when you put those three pieces, quality instruction, great retention, fidelity to the model, and leadership, you're going to get those outcomes. We had a TFS National Board meeting today on site. Our board members were on site today. They got to see the school. They got to tour the instructional model. And when you put those good things together, you're going to get pretty good results. Caveat, 50% of those kids are new every year. So Mendez has an opportunity for a lot of growth because 50% of the students are new every year. At our other we usually do pretty well in middle school. Where our schools in our portfolio don't do well is where we have a K-8, and it's a very stable environment, because as you grow 1.7 years, if you do that 3 or 4 years, you're getting up to grade level. And not every kid's going to be moving to that 90th percentile mark. Then you're getting into giftedness, and that's a little bit different. But it just, those three pieces go together, an exceptional team.
And so this growth is from the beginning of the year to middle of the year, is that
In
correct?
4 months' time, yes.
Okay. And I also wanted to ask what the average class size was?
Our average class size is around 16 to 17 kids.
Okay. And Superintendent, how does that compare to the class size of most of our middle schools, do we know?
Well, it's gonna vary based on school type, or school. So I just.
Like, just say, like,
I
do
can-
we have a 16 to 17 more or less, or about the same?
Generally, we're gonna staff them more students per classroom. When we would have that, it would be at a school with a really small student population, where we wouldn't want to have too few teachers per grade level.
Yeah.
But for most of our schools, especially ones that are larger size, it'd be more students per classroom.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Trustee Quintana.
Yes, hi, thanks y'all. Well, first of all, I would love to be a Quintanilla because I love Selena with my whole heart. My family's from Corpus Christi, but unfortunately, I'm just a Quintana. And I had a conversation with Nicole on our bi-weekly or bi-monthly meetings, and she mentioned that y'all give your students city bus passes. Right, and so whenever I asked her, where are the other kids who aren't coming to school every day, and she said that some of them were getting on the city bus and were not going to school. And so I wondered if there's a significant amount of students who do that, and if so, if y'all have thought about any sort of strategy to get them to school. I'd love to hear more about that.
I'll speak on it. Yeah, the majority of our students do ride the city bus. I don't know about bus passes. I believe it's free for students, so I don't think they need a pass for it. Some other things that we've opened up and have presented to our families is the CAP Metro, I believe, that serves the Dove Springs area. Normally, it's just an app that parents can sign up for. Students can too. We have a few students that actually take that to school. I say maybe in the range of 5 to 10 that take that. And that information was presented towards the end of the year last year. And so we rolled that out to our parents whenever we do our parent conferences or parent nights. We give them that information. We've worked with our counselor. We've worked with Ms. Hernandez, who is one of the parent support specialists, of just communicating with them to figure out what it is we can do to get them on campus. So those are just some of the things that we've tried.
Thank you. Any more questions?
I have several that I'll just submit on the board tracker for post-meeting at a time. Thank you, though, for your presentation. And nice.
We brought you presents.
Oh, yes.
Pass these out. So, this is what we've been passing out to some of the elementary schools to do some recruitment. So, make sure everybody's.
I get skipped all the time.
Good. Thank you for the flyers, the handouts, and thank you so much for the information.
Yes.
And the work.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We now move to the consent agenda. Before we ask for a motion, the administration wants to share that a new agenda item requested by the administration has been placed on the agenda since our preview at our information session earlier this month. That's item 8.9, the resolution for bad weather closure that was discussed during the superintendent's update and that Trustee Kaufman asked a question about. This item is to address the closure due to winter weather on January 21st and to ensure our staff, our hourly staff can get paid. Following consideration from the board, this item will ensure that staff are still paid for that day and neither staff nor students will need to make this day up. Trustees, are there any consent items anyone would like to pull for a separate vote? Okay. Secretary Gonzalez, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Yes, I move to approve consent agenda items 8.1 through 8.9, 9.1 through 9.3, 10.1 through 10.3, 11.1 through 11.3.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on any of these items?
Yes.
Okay, Trustee Hunter.
Thank you so much. I'm speaking on 9.3. I asked some questions, and Dr. Reach, I know they were published for the information session. Can we make sure that these questions also appear twice on this section so that people can read the questions that I have about 9.3? Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank the AISD Police Department. I'd like to thank everyone in transportation. I will say that I really wanted to know a little bit more about the cameras and the stop arms and how all of that was working. And I will say that I am horrified, absolutely horrified, that in 2024, and this is just the data that I got, so the one that I'm going to give you up to this point, in 23-24, 9,114 citations were issued for people passing a stopped bus arm. We have been so fortunate that no child has been gravely injured. Ridiculous. I know that our community and the Austin community at large cares for our children. Every time we have a vote, they show us how much they care. They need to care when they are behind the wheel. We have, so far, I think it's at 144 people have paid. The rest of y'all need to pay your money, because that money is not as much as it would cost on your conscience if you had harmed a child. Stop. It's that simple. I stop for Austin Achieve buses. I stop for AISD buses. I stop for Pflugerville buses. If you see that arm, you stop. Now, the most astounding thing is that this is only on 294 buses. This is not even all our buses. So if you start multiplying every bus for every school district statewide, I don't know why we just don't see a child being marched to the graveyard every single day. Our children have enough to worry about. We train them for, shooters. We train them for tornadoes. Do we have to train them on the bus to be safe from our community members? I don't think so. I know that we can do better. And I don't say that out of malice. I say it out of care, because there is nothing that, once you've done that, you cannot take it back if you harm a child with the vehicle. So far this year in 24-25, this is only till January 10th. 3,172 have been issued. Next time you're having a conversation with someone and there's like, oh, I wonder what I could do for the schools. One, give some money, donate some time, and stop when you see that stop arm go up. Full stop. I'm excited to vote for this. The fee is so small. $300 up to $1,200. We should just impound your car, honestly. We should just impound your car and sell it. Ridiculous, right? That's just Ms. Hunter talking. But I am saying that
not a motion.
Today when I was in the car and I stopped behind an Austin Achieve bus, my daughter was like, why, I said, she said, the arm's not up yet, but it's gonna go up. Those lights are flashing, they have stopped, that arm is gonna go up. Now the 5 seconds I'm gonna save trying to zip around that bus, I can't get a life back. And then I explained this to her, and about tonight, she was shocked. She's 16, right? And she was like, people don't stop. I know, people don't stop. So please, please, please stop when you see the stop arm. I'm excited to vote for this. I can't wait till we can get them on all the buses. And then I was talking with the chief, and he was like, have you seen the films? I don't think my heart can take it. I don't think my heart can take seeing the film. So please, 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 just be cautious. Be careful. And again, we have been so fortunate that none of our babies have been hurt, or at least not hurt severely. Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Trustee Hunter. Do we have any more discussion on these items before we vote? Great. Having a motion by Secretary Gonzalez and a second by Trustee Whitley Chu, Vice President Whitley Chu, to approve consent agenda items 8.1 through 8.9, 9.1 through 9.3, and 10.1 through 10.3, and 11.1 through 11.3. All those in favor, please raise your right hands. Oh.
I apologize.
That's okay.
I just noticed that the consent is in that list that you just said of the talent strategy. And I thought we had agreed that we would, maybe I made this up, but I thought we had agreed we would listen to in closed session about the details of the employee actions before we vote on them.
That is right. Thank you for that.
So I would like to move, if I can, to remove 11.1 and to 11.3 from the consent agenda prior to the vote.
You just need a second.
Great. Do we have a second to make that? Okay, so having a motion by Trustee Kaufman to remove items 11.1 and 11.3, and a second by Trustee Quintana.
11.1 to 11.3.
11.1 through 11.3, right? Okay, yes, sorry. Thank you. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, motion passes by all on the dais. So now we have an amended motion to approve consent agenda items 8.1 through 8.9, 9.1 through 9.3, and 10.1 through 10.3. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, the motion passes unanimously. And do we want to take those, trustees, do we want to take 11.1 through 11.3 and talk about them in executive session before? Do we need to make an amendment or just come back and vote for those after our executive session?
You can just come back and vote after.
Okay, perfect. We'll do that. And then we also have after executive session, there is a student transfer appeal listed on our agenda.
Oh, we don't have to.
Okay. Oh, perfect. It's in the script. Okay, perfect. So the next item before executive session is our Lone Star Governance Quarterly Evaluation. I think we have AJ Craybill here tonight. So a copy of the summary quarterly evaluation is attached to tonight's agenda item, and our current quarter score is 69. That's an increase of 3 points from our last quarterly evaluation. And our regular LSG coach, Ashley Paz, had another school board commitment tonight. So her colleague, AJ Crowbill, is here, who's been with us before in the past. And AJ, thank you for joining us tonight. This is an opportunity for the board to ask any clarifying questions about our current work and the work we're planning to undertake in the next quarter. As a reminder, under our Lone Star governance requirements, this time does not, it's neutral minutes on this, not student outcomes, but not other. So before we open it up for questions, I want to know if there's anything AJ would like to share, and I want to just call out what we made a difference on. We moved from meets to masters on goal 1, and coming up, and so that got us 3 points from last time, and then we're going to be working on synergy and teamwork. Anticipated that we might move to 9 points with a focus on that next time, and on progress and accountability 2. There's a plan for working with the administration to meet some of the requirements before our next quarterly check-in, which would also move us up in that category. So, AJ, are you here with us?
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Thank you for being with us. Is there anything you'd like to share about where we are, where we stand, and
But no, just happy to be of service and be responsive to whatever questions board members and the superintendent may have.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Trustees, do we have any questions for Mr. Craybill? New trustees, anyone about where we are? I know a lot of people have had a chance to talk with Ashley. A lot of people have filled this out.
I have a question.
Trustee Singh, thank you.
Yes. Hi, AJ. I'm not sure if this question is for AJ or for us, but I did want to ask if about the theory of change or the theory of action that's on there. Do we have, AJ, can you tell us a little bit about what the theory of action is and what that needs to look like?
Gladly. So part of the work of the board is you identify the vision and the values of the community. The vision is caught up in the goals that you've adopted, and the values are caught up in the constraints that you've adopted. So think of the theory of action as just a special type of constraint. It's a special way of communicating what are our community's values that absolutely have to be honored, while the school system is in the process of accomplishing the goals. And so as a board, this is a theory of action is something that a superintendent could adopt separately, but that Lone Star Governance encourages boards to consider, is this something that we want to adopt? Do we want to be clear about the high-level strategies that should be observed in our district because they are a critical part of honoring our community's values? Most of the time, your theories of action will sound like if the school system pursues X and the school system pursues Y and the school system pursues Z, then the school system can expect ABC. And so it's normally contemplated in that type of way. But again, it's not looking for small tactical things. It's what are really large system-wide strategy issues that are grounded in the values of the community. Is that responsive to your inquiry?
Yeah, it is. So is that something that we formally adopt that? Is that correct?
Yes, the board would
Okay.
need to would first need to work collaboratively with the superintendent if you're going to develop one, and then ultimately adopt it as policy the same way that you've done with your goals.
Okay. Okay, cool. So I guess the question I have for us as a board, so I see that is checked in the document that we've done that. So are we counting the theory of action that's already written in our existing policy?
That's my understanding, is that under Ashley's coaching, that she said the theory of action we have in our existing policy counts.
Okay.
But that we also have an opportunity to go make the new one. AJ, is that your understanding?
Certainly, it is at the board's discretion to modify its policies, and your goals and constraints are just one of those that the board could make a decision to modify. Generally speaking, because these are high-level strategies, I would not expect goals, constraints, or your theories of action, which is a special type of constraint, to change more than once every 3 to 5 years. So it's not something that you'd look at modifying annually. But if it's been 3 to 5 years since you've adopted the last one, it would make sense if the board wants to visit with the superintendent and decide collectively that it's time to review that.
Okay.
Perfect, thank you so much. And I just got a text from Ashley that that AJ's on the way to the airport. Ashley is on the call now because she's finished with her other board meeting. And I want to invite you, Ashley, to share anything more. Thank you for all of that, AJ.
Yeah, I've just arrived at the airport. She's just finished her others. I will hand you off. But as always, as we can be supportive, never hesitate to reach out.
You guys promised to be there, and you were always there when we call you, so thank you. Safe travels. Ashley, do you have anything to add? Hi.
I do not have anything to add. AJ summed it up perfectly. One of the things that is just to note for this board, because you do have a new scorecard with new goals, new constraints, this would be an appropriate time in the next between now and the next 6 months or so. It would be an appropriate time for you to have this conversation about the theory of action if you chose to do that. But again, as AJ said, it is up to the board's discretion.
Great, thank you very much. Trustees, any more questions, comments? Perfect. Secretary Gonzalez, do we have a motion to approve item 12.1?
I move to approve item 12.1, the Lone Star Governance Quarterly Evaluation.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Having a motion by Trustee Gonzalez and a second by Trustee Quintana to approve agenda item 12.1. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you for that. And we will now recess the open meeting at 7:57 p.m. and move to executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.074, 551.072, 551.073, 551.087, 551.076, 551.0821, and 551.071. We were scheduled to take a vote on the transfer appeal that's under Section 14. But the administration has settled the transfer this week and no vote is necessary. Thank you to the administration for doing that. When we finish with the executive session, we'll return to the open meeting to formally adjourn. The adjournment will be recorded and included in all replays of tonight's meeting. Thank you to everyone who's. And vote on. Oh, we will be returning, yes, to vote on, that's right, to vote on agenda items 11.1 through 11.3. Thank you. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So we'll be back now. Yeah, we recessed at 7:57. Thank you. Oh, we're good. Hi, we're returning to open session at 8:29 p.m. to consider the items that were pulled from the consent agenda. We will begin with a motion. Secretary Gonzalez, do we have a motion?
Yes, I move to approve item 11.1, proposed termination of a professional employee during a probationary contract.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Having a motion by Secretary Gonzalez and a second by Trustee Quintana to approve item 11.1. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passes by all those on the dais. Trustee Gonzalez, do we have a second motion?
Yes, I move to approve item 11.2, termination of a non-Chapter 21 contract employee during the contract term.
Having a motion by Secretary, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, having a motion by Secretary Gonzalez, a second by Trustee Quintana to approve item 11.2. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Oh, by Kaufman? Oh, thank you. No, I just don't have enough lines to write it down. And I went back and read the last one. Trustee Kaufman. Okay, so having a motion by Secretary Gonzalez and a second by Trustee Kaufman to approve item 11.2. All in favor, raise your right hand. And the motion passes, the proper motion passes by all those on the dais. Okay, Secretary Gonzalez, do we have a motion about our third pulled item?
Yes, I move to approve item 11.3, pursuing sanctions against educators who have abandoned their contracts pursuant to TEC 21.105, 21.210, and 19 TAC 249.14.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion? Having a motion by Secretary Gonzalez and a second by Trustee Hunter to approve item 11.3. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. And the motion passes by all those on the dais. We will now return to closed session at 8:31 p.m. So we are now reconvening the open meeting at 10:18 p.m. Secretary Gonzalez, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
The meeting is adjourned at 10:18 p.m.